Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome to a particularly spooky Halloween special in July. We are playing against Grey Hunter and the Vampires, and right off the bat, the turn counter gets moved forward a turn.
That's probably good for us. Probably.
Seven Deadly Sins. Tell me about vampires.
Okay, so remember how I was talking about lizard men when we were playing lizard men, and they're kind of a one of those yin and yang teams where half the team is bashy and half the team is speedy. Well, vampires are kind of the same way, except half the team can do everything and half the team can do nothing. Vampires themselves are amazing. They are 6'4", 4'8", with strength and agility access, which is ridiculous.
Yes.
So they can go bashy, they can go elfy, they can do whatever the hell they want. And they have a special spell. Ooh,
yes.
them some dub skulls.
Very
Waste
useful.
Rerolls.
That is very useful because
vampires have bloodlust.
that is not useful though.
Regenerated. He's fine. Anytime a vampire tries to do anything, they have to roll a d6, and on a 1, they have to run up to one of their linemen, called thralls, and suck their blood, which immediately rolls for injury on the lineman. Oh, that didn't work. So it immediately rolls for injury on the lineman, with any injuries automatically badly hurt, so you can't, kill a thrall.
Yep.
But it will be a guaranteed stun. And if you happen to not be able to end your action next to a thrall, then your vampire will run off the pitch to go feed on some poor member of the crowd, and then you'll get a turnover, and that vampire will be off the field for the entirety of the drive.
Which is very, very bad.
Especially since your vampires are the only players that can do anything, because thralls are 6'3", 3'7", with only general access, and therefore are just blatantly bad. They have no other positionals. It's vampires, which are amazing, and thralls, which are crap.
They're not terrible, but they are linemen. They're basically the zombies of that team.
They're linemen, but they're human linemen with one less armor, and that's a problem because one of the best ways to deal with vampires is you just punch the fuck out of thralls. And when they run out of thralls, then every time they lose a bloodlust, it's a turnover, and it makes them just way, 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 way harder to deal with.
Now, specifically, the Grey Hunter here is doing something that probably, I guess the do not try this at home kids. And he's playing 5, I believe he's playing 4 or 5 vampires on the pitch right now.
5 vampires, yes.
He is playing 5 vampires ball, and he has 4 rerolls, which you will, because you can reroll that bloodlust roll, he will be very judicial in his rerolls of bloodlust, because
Which is why it was so bad that he had to reroll a block.
Yes.
Because really, the only thing you ever want to reroll with vampires is bloodlust, because it's so important.
And it is not uncommon to see vampires roll with 5 rerolls, because they absolutely use those up. Especially if you have 5 vampires.
And one of the things is that Beef Slab is just being obnoxious.
Look at Beef Slab tying up dudes.
Yeah. One of the things is that vampires are actually extremely team value efficient, because thralls are only 40k. And I believe that the vampires themselves are 100k or something.
111? I don't know off the top of my head.
But they're cheap, so what ends up happening is that you can have... It's not uncommon to see vampire teams with 6 rerolls. And, 5 vampires. And it's even especially common to see teams with more vampires than they will field at any given time. Because if you have 5 vampires, it's often common to just have 4 of them on the field at any given time. And then have the 5th one as a backup in case one gets injured or a thrall gets off the pitch and you have a drive where you really need to take the chances and have that, exceptional.
Now, see there, the vampires were forced to use another reroll because this guy, Duke Fangles, wanted to take off and run to the end zone, but he failed his bloodlust, and so he's now down to 2 rerolls. And you can barely feel the presence on the effect of that on the pitch, but he is now in a very, very easily attackable position. A couple dodges, I guess one dodge with Santos, but we know he's going to nail it because Santos is the man. and that ball is pretty easily attacked.
Yeah, and often, like I would have even considered just keeping that and not re-rolling that, but the problem is that he wanted to run down the pitch, and there are no thralls over there. Vampires kind of live by the buddy system. Whenever you send a vampire somewhere, you should probably send a thrall along in case they bloodlust and you don't have a reroll, just so that you don't give as many turnovers. Because vampires already have a hard enough time. They don't need to be giving away more turnovers.
It's also fairly typical for a vampire team in general to roll with a lot more players than just, especially if you're rolling with that many vampires. And in fact, the Grey Hunter actually cut a couple of his thralls, which are very useful, especially later on when thralls, if and when thralls start going down.
It's not an if. It's
Right.
not an if. Thralls are extremely fragile, and they get attacked by both your players and the enemy players. So, it's extremely common. That is a beautiful scatter.
Yeah, and so with my ridiculous speed,
9 movement wolf.
we can
is
scoop
bullshit.
up that ball and just hang out in the back in the end zone,
It's
and
wonderful.
try to settle what's going on. All this nonsense up here. Maybe set up for a passing game, because you guys have made it very clear that you want me to pass the ball. So I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. But it's extremely common to see large benches for vampires.
Yes.
Just because they shed so many players. And if you have vampires in reserve, then, like, there are times where close to the end of the game, like, let's say you're down a bit and you really need the score to tie it up, or you're tied and you really need the score to win it. And you can, like, field 6 vampires and just go, okay, if I roll godlike, then I've got 6 dudes that completely own. And so you just kind of charge them with vampires.
Yeah. The vampires as a team sort of occupy, they're very close in what we call the joke tier, which is, if you remember from earlier, we played, I believe it was Agent 355's Goblin team.
Yep.
And they are also what we consider a joke team, so it's not necessarily a valid team for consistently winning. And like to that effect, vampires don't consistently win just because there's so much I guess variability in how well they can do, because sometimes vampires can just go crazy all over you with their 4 strength or 4 agility
And their hypnotic gaze.
and their hypnotic gaze, which hopefully we'll see we'll see that happen once or twice. But they can just destroy you, or they can end up just eating half their own team, running off the pitch, and letting you just run away with the score.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for vampire games to end at like 4-0 in either direction.
Yep. Oh, that's not good.
Oh, that's not good. Okay,
It's only
he's
a badly hurt. That is
fine.
that is the passing white though, and so that is rip the pass
That
game
pretty much kills our passing
for this game. Like that is, if I'm gonna pass the ball, it's gonna be with the pass guy, and it's gonna be to the diving catch person, because that has been as it's been foretold.
Pretty much. And actually, I want to point out something about all the quote-unquote joke teams, is that joke teams tend to be very heavy on players that are theoretically exceptional but have negatraits.
Yes.
Like, for example, the goblins have secret weapons, which are really, really good until you realize that they can only be on the pitch once and then they have to leave because the ref is only so blind. Or you have ogres, which the snotlings are hot garbage and the ogres are giant retards. And so they just kind of stand around picking their noses
Yep.
the whole time. Or vampires who eat their own team when they roll ones, but when they don't roll ones, they go apeshit. So all the joke teams tend to be those, if we roll well, we are completely unstoppable.
Yes.
But, oh yes. So, did he reroll a Bloodlust this turn?
You know
Or
what?
did he just reserve the reroll? I think he just reserved the reroll because he's down to his last reroll and we're on turn 4.
Vampires reroll Bloodlust so often that I sort of lose track.
It's really hard to keep track of when vampires just reroll shit, because they do it all the time.
Especially in this game, Grey Hunter has he was very liberal with his Bloodlust rerolls. I guess he didn't, because he only had 13 13 players total, and he had to cut down a couple thralls. I guess he decided that he would rather have those players around for later in the game, and he's choosing to spend his rerolls in that way.
Yep.
So we're going to attempt the world's biggest and most unwieldy screen here, because this pitch is sort of blown wide open, and that is it could be very bad for the team, considering how agile and how strong vampires are.
But then again, one of the things about vampires is that, like many teams, like for example, Norse or Amazon or some of those other teams, they are only movement 6. And
Yep.
we have a 9 movement werewolf. That is bullshit.
Like half our team is faster. Yeah.
If we get an opening to run, we just get to take off. Nothing you can do about it.
The Grey Hunter is going to try to, I guess, simultaneously get in our way and then also try to stop us.
That would be the aim
Yep.
of Blood Bowl, yes.
Well, yes, correct.
I mean, that said, when the vampire aim is we just want to stop them from scoring on their drive.
Yep.
Ooh, not great. So this is pretty bad for the vampires, but now he's just kind of arranging things.
I mean, at this point in the match, I'm sort of thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I just kicked off to him, and I now have the ball. I'm not really hard pressed to score, because I know the longer this match goes, the more thralls and maybe even vampires are going to get knocked out. And so I'm basically at this point just sort of playing the waiting game, saying, can I keep him from scoring this half? If I could score this half, that'd be great. That could probably be like a game sealing thing. If I can score this half and nobody on my team dies, I'm pretty confident that I can score in the second half.
Unfortunately, we're already down 2 players.
Yes.
Well, we're down 1 player because the other one regenerated. You can see Bone Cruncher McGraw.
Yep.
Just hanging out on the sidelines.
Yeah, but we're down a player on this pitch, and
Yes, and that would be at one of our whites, which is a block player. And the vampires have 4 blockers. They have 3 block vampires and a block thrall. So,
yes, they're a very heavy block team.
Not entirely. I think we outblock them. Well, we did before we lost to white.
Yep. We also have the vaunted
The wrestler.
wrestler. Correct. The best blocker.
The best blocker, yes. Dude, block is wrestle's the most dangerous skill in the game. So, I'd like to note, anyone out there taking notes on what a screen is, what the vampires are doing here is a screen.
Yes, and this is a very, very gross position for me.
It's awful because we don't have a lot of players that can get away from the fight right now. Like, Pelvis Costello's stuck there, Johnny Rotten's stuck where he is. Beef Slab isn't going anywhere except Punchy. Well, he's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty badass.
And so I'm going to wheel Beef Slab around here. I sort of have a couple ideas of what I want to do, and then I end up kind of changing my mind a couple times. I'm not really sure where I want to go with this ball, and the fact that the vampires are so heavily committed to their own field, but also halfway in my backfield, so they're just sort of pincered in on me, and I end up deciding that the best move is after I sort of have some not so great positioning. I decide the best move is to the risky move, which is to fall back and sort of let things settle, let him come after me. Might take a ball carrier punch, might not, but ultimately I just want to get this game less spread out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still don't like this field position in general.
No.
There's nothing good about it. And I don't know why you ran backwards there.
No, in watching this game back, I'm not really sure why I do either. I mean, I could, like, theoretically, even if he could put up a defense, like, I could theoretically just run up to him again and then stop him. But it's at this point, it's sort of like fingers crossed that whatever he presents to me, I can get out of, depending on how hard he wants to attack the ball or not.
Then now he's just standing dudes next to your dudes.
Okay, so there is actually, I think the first
gaze.
and maybe only instance of the hypnotic gaze, which is an agility roll, and if you succeed at it, that player just loses his tackle zone, so he basically gets boneheaded.
It's really, really good because, like, I'd note that you can use it after you move.
Yep.
You can use it after you get up.
Mm-hmm.
It does not. It's basically a blitz, and it is why vampires are a huge, huge chore to deal with. Like, we set up a pretty nice cage, and he just waltzed over and was like, oh, hey, now there's a giant hole in it, because that player just doesn't exist. You can't set up cages against them because one corner just gets gazed and it falls apart, especially since they have 4 strength players that can just waltz in and 2DB people. So it's not good. And now our field position is getting even worse because he's just covering the pitch with obnoxious shit. And he's still got some thralls and a vampire back.
Yep.
But there's the first bloodlust that he cannot reroll. So you'll note that he has to end this
movement.
action next to a thrall. So he's going to turn to Garruk Ostro, and boom, there's a stun. That player is down. Unfortunately, it was only a stun. It can be any injury, so you can have players get injured or knocked out, so you can get badly hurts. You can have vampires just run all over their own team. It's not great.
Now, fortunately for us, we have Frenzy, and in a situation like this, a mere normal player would probably be terrified about the fact that he's reverse caged in. But we can actually pretty easily Frenzy punch our way out, and then in the best situation, Frenzy punch out, and then waltz right through that little hole in between his 2 lines of players, and run down towards Beef Slab, and then maybe even end up this game with a score.
Yeah.
That of course requires us to mark some players, and so the big question I'm going to be asking myself is, if I get this first punch, and I get the knockdown, do I just immediately take it? Do I not even think about it? And so here we go.
That's obnoxious, and you do take it.
I don't even really think about it. I basically decide.
You get the KO, which is nice.
Yes, like I want to make this punch because I know I'm gonna have to make a couple dodges. Turns out I fail my first one.
That's not great, but that was the first reroll of the half.
Yep,
which is impressive.
And it turns out I actually have some pretty good defensive positioning. Sure, there's a couple vampires who can do some dodging and mess my stuff up. But here's a very weird move. He goes for the 1DB immediately with no rerolls. I guess he had a plan, but it didn't work.
It involved a 1DB without rerolls,
which is not
awful.
not a good.
Never
plan.
do that. Just don't try this at home, kiddos.
Luckily, I have my own plan, and it involves having a player with 9 movement.
That's the most bullshit plan. It's the most bullshit plan.
My plan is to... No. Oh, God, no.
I've misclicked a foul and then just watched my player run up and put the boot into, like, some fucking 40k lineman and get thrown off the pitch. And I'm like, no! Just watching it in slow motion.
That's... I've definitely done that before, cyanide misclicking. But no, the plan is to stand up, being laying down in the middle of enemy territory. The plan is to stand up off the ground, pick up the ball, and go score a touchdown from like 15 squares away.
9 movement is a beautiful thing.
Yep. From here, it's going to take another reroll to get to where I'm going. And so I am wisely choosing not to take it now, and instead take it next turn, so I can make use of that reroll that I still have.
And note that he counted squares to know that he was not forced to make the second going for it this turn.
Yep.
An important thing is always count squares.
Absolutely.
Never just kind of wing it, because you get a whole bunch of turn, or you get a whole bunch of time per turn, and it's kind of a waste if you don't use it.
Winging it is fun sometimes, but I decided that this is a game that I wanna win because I like SPPs and I like McGruff.
Too busy getting your ass kicked the rest of the time.
Not getting my ass kicked. I've had ties. No, no. Like I wanna beat.
You want to look good in front of all your fans.
Yeah, I've been looking like a putz, and
oh yeah, punching a vampire, but you're not clawing a vampire.
No, unfortunately not.
Wolf Blitzer, not doing his thing. Shame for Display.
So, theoretically, still vampires can get up in my business, but I'm fairly well equipped to get them away from my business should they try to get into it. So let's cross our fingers, turn 8, and see if we can't end this half in a favorable pole position.
Well, he has. It's very difficult for him to.
Oh. I just feel bad about that.
I don't fuck vampires.
Oh man,
I'm too tired of vampires doing dumb shit. Like, he also could have just made a 2DB instead of making 2 dodges. Like, these are all just questionable. And we get a KO on a vampire. This is wonderful.
Mighty Blow, in fact, doing a thing, and
it's
forcing that KO. Oh, and we totally forgot to talk about the fact that it's really sunny. So after this half, when I definitely go score that touchdown, as I move my guys down to support and help celebrate in the end zone. After this half and going into the start of the second half, both teams are presumably maybe going to be missing some players to the Sun. So here we go, fingers crossed, easy roll.
We'll explain more about the Sun next half.
Yep.
Which will conveniently see us up 1-0. And it's halftime.
See you guys next half.